Hi, I'm Cheryl Scarlato of SSG Insurance, also known as Senior Solutions Group. And in this short video, I'm going to help you sort out what you need to know about final expense life insurance. There are lots of questions and misconceptions about this type of insurance, and there are 13 most commonly asked questions, and we're going to address them one by one. And by the end of this video, whether or not you choose to trust us to handle your final expense insurance, at least you'll have the information you need to make an intelligent and informed decision. So let's start with the first question. Do I need final expense policy? You might be asking yourself, do I even need a final expense insurance? Well, we all know that life can be expensive. What you may not know is that death can also be expensive. I lost some very close friends in the past couple of years, and each of their funerals, and believe me, they were nothing fancy, cost about $15,000 a piece, and that's just on average. And they already owned their burial plots. And one of them had to post on social media asking for help in a GoFundMe account. The national average as of 2024 for cremation is about $3,500 all the way up to $8,000, excuse me. A funeral or a burial can be closer to $10,000, $12,000 or even higher. It just depends on where you live and what's all involved and what you choose to have part of your service. But that is a lot of money for most people. Unless you already have a bunch of money saved up and you aren't concerned about the costs associated with paying for your final expenses, then perhaps you don't need this final expense life insurance. But if not, you have to ask yourself, if I don't take care of this, who is going to get stuck with the bill? In addition to funeral costs, there are also other final expenses such as outstanding debts and medical expenses that often get wind up being the responsibility of the people that you care about. So does it make sense to consider a final expense policy? That's up to you. But the way I see it, information is good. It's certainly worth learning more about, so that's what we're going to do now. We've all heard the final expense commercials on TV and probably received dozens of postcards each year promising that you can't be turned down and that there's no medical questions and no exam to qualify. So are these claims legitimate? Actually, these claims are legitimate. And there are basically two categories of final expense coverage. We have either guarantee issue and we have simplified issue. So question number 2, which one is better? Guaranteed issue is truly just that. You can't be turned down for any reason. There's no medical questions and there's no medical exam. It's truly a guaranteed acceptance, pure and simple. So if you're really sick, how can the insurance companies afford to do that? After all, we know that life insurance companies are not in business to simply give away free money. Here's how they do it. The policies that are true guarantee issue all come with a catch. Most of them work something like this. If you die during the first 2 years of the policy, you don't receive the full death benefit. What you do receive, however, is all your money back plus 10%. Plus 10% of what you paid in or a similar variation of that. So let's say your situation is such that you expect to die in the next 2 years. Does buying one of these guarantee issue policies turn out to be a bad deal? I don't think so. Where else can you put your money and get it back plus a guaranteed 10% in such a short period of time? And more importantly, after you make it through that 2-year period, the coverage is real. If you bought, let's say, a $12,000 policy and you died 2 years and 1 day after that start of the policy, the insurance company will pay the full $12,000. The second type of final expense coverage commonly available is called simplified issue. This type of coverage costs less than the guarantee issue policies, and it doesn't have the same waiting periods before the full coverage is available. That means even if you die just 1 day after the coverage starts, your beneficiaries receive the full death benefit of the policy. In every way, simplified issue policies are better than guarantee issue policies if you can get one. But simplified issue policies do require you to be in halfway decent health to qualify. Nothing crazy. You don't have to be perfect health. In fact, you can often qualify for this kind of coverage even though you may have one or more medical condition. And again, if you can qualify for a simplified issue policy, it would be utterly ridiculous to buy a guarantee issue policy. You might even be surprised to learn that a very high percentage of folks can qualify for a simplified issue policy. There's still no medical exam, but you will have to answer a few medical questions. And we will need to go over your prescription medications to see if you qualify. Of course, even if you don't qualify, you can always qualify for and buy a guarantee issue policy. There's also one more category of policy that is kind of right in the middle of the two, right between the two that we just described. And it's commonly called modified or graded death benefit life insurance. This type of policy may have a schedule of percentage of death benefit that may grade over time. For example, one might provide that during the first year, if you die, you would get 30% of the death benefit. In year 2, if you pass away, you would only get 70%. And in year 3, that's when it fully kicks in at 100% of the death benefit. Because this is a compromise between the two other types of plans that we talked about, these types of policies typically cost a little bit more than the simplified issue or the level plans. And since they provide varying levels of coverage right out of the gate, their pricing can vary, sometimes more, sometimes less than a guarantee issue plan. So question number 3, how long does it take to get a final expense life insurance policy? Most final expense life insurance companies are prepared to approve and issue policies so that you can sometimes be covered within just a few minutes, either in person or over the phone, which is what we will do. Depending on the type of policy, it can take a few days for your payments to clear, but once it does, you're covered and your policy is generally sent out to you just a few days after your payment goes through. So question number 4, how are life insurance death benefit proceeds taxed? Or are they taxed at all? Other than in rare circumstances, none of which are likely on a final expense policy, the death benefit proceeds of life insurance policies are received by your beneficiary 100% income tax free. One might say that it's Congress's gift to you, and in essence, their way of encouraging folks to own life insurance. Question number 5. So how much does the final expense policies cost? Well, as you can probably guess, the more coverage you want, the more it costs. So for example, a $10,000 policy would obviously cost about twice as much as a $5,000 policy, but which we've already learned that simplified issue plans cost less than guarantee issue plans for the same coverage amounts. And their full death benefits are available right away with no waiting periods. But I'm sure you want more specifics. So here's a typical example of pricing for a 65-year-old woman. A $10,000 policy could cost as little as $42 a month for a simplified level death benefit, or as much as $60 a month or more for a guarantee issue plan. If you're younger, it would cost a little bit less. If you're older, obviously a little bit more on both types of the plans. The rates are guaranteed never to go up once they're issued. Rates and availability can also vary by state, but these numbers represent a pretty realistic range to give you some idea of what to expect. Question number 6. Final expense policies are typically issued as whole life. So what does that mean? Final expense policies are typically issued as whole life. Whole life final expense policies, they're both simplified and guarantee issue, are almost always issued as whole life. Whole life is the type of product that has a premium that remains level for the life of the policy and has coverage that does not expire. It doesn't expire like term life that does expire. So if you own a whole life final expense policy, your coverage and amount or the death benefit will never be reduced or canceled other than if you don't pay your premiums each month. And like I said, if you have guarantee issue type, then you'll typically have a limited death benefit in the first couple of years. Still, you get all your money back plus 10%. But after that, it becomes just like any other whole life plan with full death benefits that remain level and cannot be canceled other than for non-payment of premiums. And those premiums that remain the same and they never go up for the rest of your life. Another feature of the whole life is that whole life policies by law have reserves. These reserves create a cash surrender value. Since final expense policies are generally small in face amount, the cash values don't typically amount to all that much, but they are real and they are available for you to access by way of policy loans, should you ever want to do that. So question number 7. I see so many commercials and get so many postcards. Are they all the same? Are there differences between these companies and the agents of the final expense arena? In terms of what they offer and what it costs, absolutely. They absolutely have a difference. Some companies only offer guarantee issue plans, and why they do this, I couldn't say. But as we mentioned earlier, even if your health is below average, you can still often do better with simplified issue policies. And we believe, as your advocate, you deserve to know if there's something better that you can qualify for, giving you more death benefit with no waiting period and lower premiums. So the answer is no. They're definitely not all the same, which is what I do for you for free. I will put all of your information into my system, and because I represent the top-rated companies in your state, I will match you up with the best plan for your needs and, most importantly, your budget. So question number 8, am I too old to qualify for coverage? Most final expense policies are available as long as you're age 80 or younger. Some companies will offer all the way up to age 85. But if you're over 80, it'll depend on the company, which state you live in, and what the company's rules are. And remember, once you buy a policy, as long as you pay your premiums, they can't take it away from you. These policies last until you die, no matter how long that takes. Question 9, how can I be sure the money will be there when I die? Well, since these policies are issued by some of the oldest and largest and strongest financial institutions in the world, life insurance companies like Mutual of Omaha, AIG, American Amicable, and many others, These companies manage billions of dollars of assets, and they are highly rated by the A&M Best Ratings Company, and they promptly pay their claims every day. Some of them have been doing it well over for 100 years. So question number 10, what are the methods of payment? The insurance companies decide which methods of payment they'll accept, and that does vary from company to company. All of them will take a standard ACH form, which allows them to debit your bank account for the premiums each month. Some of them will also take a credit cards, at least for your first premium, while others will not. And lastly, some will even allow you to pay using a debit card or a Social Security debit card like Direct Express, while others will not. We know the rules of each of these companies, and I can help you guide you to the right company. So question number 11, what can the death benefit from the policy be used for? The proceeds of a final expense policy can be used for anything at all. Unlike a prepaid funeral insurance policy where the funeral home is the beneficiary, and most will spend the whole amount regardless if it actually costs less or not. With the final expense policy, how the proceeds are used is up to your beneficiary. Obviously, most people use the proceeds to help with final expenses like the cost of a funeral or any other outstanding debts or bills, but they can also be used to augment your legacy for your loved ones, leaving behind a little extra cash for any purpose that they like. Some companies, if you qualify, will have added benefits like an advocate that will help your beneficiary find the lowest cost funeral home, the lowest cost casket. They'll do all the shopping for you, or they will at least lead you into the right direction. Some companies will give you a free living will and have access to online vaults to store all of this important documents so that your beneficiary will know. Give them your passwords, let them know that everything is all together in one vault that is virtual and can't be destroyed. Some policies will even have an accidental death benefit. Some will have a terminal illness benefit. Some will even cover your grandchildren. Question number 12. Won't the Social Security lump sum death benefit pay for my final expenses? Now, when someone dies, the Social Security lump sum death benefit from the government is only $255. Yes, that's what I said. Only $255 to a surviving spouse or a child who meets certain requirements. Hardly enough to pay for a funeral. In fact, one could argue it's not even enough to pay for the flowers. So anyone who believes that they can rely on Social Security to cover all of their final expenses is kidding themselves. Question number 13. Does ownership of a whole life policy negatively affect my ability to qualify for Medicaid? Some of our clients ask us whether the ownership of a whole life policy and a final expense policy, will it make it harder for them to qualify for Medicaid? Well, here's the answer. While whole life policy cash values are counted in the Medicaid eligibility calculations, the cash values in these policies are relatively small and unlikely to cause any disqualification for Medicaid. If they did, you could easily borrow down the funds, like you can borrow the funds from the policy and spend them down in order to qualify. As a practical matter, we don't see this happen very often at all. But if you're still concerned, one simple workaround is to have one or more of your children own the policy right from the beginning. You can still pay for it, and as long as you don't own it, the cash values won't be included in the Medicaid eligibility calculations. And the final question is, who can I trust and who should I trust? In my opinion, you should trust and buy your life insurance from whomever gives you the best advice. And if that's us, we hope that you'll trust us to handle your application. It is how we make our living. If you get a better advice from another agent, then you should buy from them. Final expense life insurance is very real, it's legitimate, and it's a legitimate way for people to create funds to offset the inevitable expenses associated with dying. So that burden of those expenses are not left to the people that you love to deal with it. So in summary, policies are available up to the age 80, even age 85. Some companies, regardless of your health, can be tailored to meet your budget. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions about final expense life insurance, feel free to give us a call at 419-614-4067, or better yet, book an appointment. And I'll put my booking link in the description, and we'll be happy to help you. Thanks for listening.